welcome to the dopamine module. In this module, we're going to be discussing dopamine, how you can use it to foster your success, and how you can avoid concentrated sources of dopamine to get more motivation to do the things that you know you should be doing, but you hate doing. So anyway, let's get into it. So, what is dopamine? Dopamine is the neurochemical which is responsible for motivation and essentially getting things done. It is administered more in anticipation of doing something more than the actual thing itself. You receive more dopamine from wanting to scroll on social media than from the actual dopamine itself you get from scrolling social media, although you receive a astronomically high amount of dopamine while scrolling as well. Dopamine is crucial to your transformation and self-development because you have to first be able to have the motivation to change yourself and do self-development in the first place. And if you're constantly using these high concentrated sources of dopaminergic energy, you will not have the motivation to change yourself because comfort gives you more dopamine. What are we doing, man? Okay. So, you have to have dopamine to do things like go to the gym, count macros, crush your workout, and practice habits with which are healthy. If you don't have your baseline dopamine under control, the changes you need to make that will benefit you will nearly be impossible, if not impossible to make. This is a very important part about dopamine, is that things like scrolling porn, video games, social media, junk food, other concentrated sources of dopamine, alcohol, drugs, etc. This is why it is so detrimental to your success, because your goals are not going to elicit enough dopamine in your brain, enough of the motivation chemical to be able to make you act on the things that will actually benefit the future of yourself. Your threshold is so high that it's not fun to do the things like chase your goals. But in reality, it's fun for me to chase my goals, but it's simply because I don't indulge in social media as much. I don't watch a bunch of YouTube like brain rot Mr. Beast content. I don't scroll porn. I don't play video games. I don't smoke weed. I don't drink alcohol. That's why these things are fun to me. The only thing that separates you having fun from me having fun is that your threshold is higher. It feels the same. And so as you stray away from these vices, which give you a high amount of dopamine, you have just as much fun crushing and working on your goals than somebody who is smoking weed has. Here are all the things that make it harder to get in shape, harder to live a life that feels enjoyable, and feel like you're not on a constant chase for your next high. Television, streaming shows, and YouTube videos. Education is fine, but even those can be harmful if you are not taking action on the videos and what they teach. If you're watching this video and you don't take action, you're basically just entertaining yourself. It is a waste of time. Entertainment is a distraction. Distraction is extraction from your goals, your wildest dreams, and what it is you want to achieve in life. This is why it is so important to stay away from these things. I do not condone watching TV all the time, although I think that it is okay to do it occasionally. But you need to realize that it can very quickly turn into another vice. Social media scrolling, video games, junk food, pornography, literary or video if you're reading it, nicotine, weed, alcohol, any other controlled substance, and even some music. A lot of music will give you an exponential amount of dopamine or an astronomical amount of dopamine, and it's not going to help you out, especially if it's something like Juice WRLD, and it's going to perpetuate your other addictions because he's talking about how much weed he smokes, yada, yada, yada. This stuff programs your mind. You don't realize it, but it does. Trust me. The most important thing is to realize is that as your dopamine receptors reset from getting off of these vices, the things that you once saw as hard are easy, and the things that artificially boost your dopamine, like these, will feel disgusting to you, like they are to me. Your dopamine-driven life. Your brain remembers the things which give you a lot of dopamine, and then it begins to give you more dopamine in anticipation of doing those things. This is something that I've learned from books that I've read, as well as studying psychology at the University of Wyoming. This evolutionarily is what has allowed us to survive at this point. If you do something and get rewarded, dopamine is released and it makes you do it again. Things like hunting an animal a certain way, things like building a fire a certain way. Your brain remembers to do those things which make you feel rewarded. However, in the modern day, concentrated sources of dopamine, like all of these above, allow you to get rewarded for doing things that you didn't work for. And it gives you way more just for scrolling your thumb. With concentrated levels of dopamine production elicited from the swipe of your finger on your phone, the harder it is to do something like eating healthy, going to the gym, and reading books, things that will benefit the future version of yourself and those around you. This is why I talk about how bad it is to be hedonistic and to chase these constant sources of pleasures and why it's bad, because it forces you to just focus on what makes you feel good, and you're not contributing to a greater existence, knowledge that you can spread to other people, or knowledge you can even spread to your children one day if you ever decide to have something like that. If you have your eyes set on a goal, basically a goal that you've programmed into your subconscious mind, when you make progress on that goal, your brain gives you dopamine when you make progress. However, if your brain is constantly stimulated with concentrated sources, it isn't enough to feel like you're having fun. So if you watch my SMART goals video in the other module and you set a goal, after a while of affirming it to yourself, visualizing it, your brain is then programmed onto that goal. It is basically your set route. It is your thing that you compare everything else up against, right? Do I go out to this bar or am I working on my goals? Well, I'm working on my goals so I don't go out to the bar. Stuff like that. This is why it is so important to stay away from these concentrated sources, because once you begin to feel a greater reward from going out with friends and partying every single weekend, rather than maybe even going to the gym with your friends or doing something that will benefit you, it is just going to take you down this route of hedonism, which ultimately leads nowhere. Because the ironic thing about always chasing dopamine for the sake of dopamine is that you eventually lose the ability to enjoy the dopamine that you have. That is withdrawal. That is the threshold that is raised. So, with concentrated sources of dopamine, your body's dopaminergic threshold is raised, thus requiring more dopamine to get you to do the things that you know you should be doing. After indulging, you feel a greater crash, because with a higher high comes a lower low. Withdrawal, anxiety, shame, etc. This negative effect from taking it often prompts people to take more high dopamine producing things to make them feel normal. So if somebody vapes, for example, and then they wake up in the morning, they feel like shit because they've withdrawn from the vape that they're having. So the first thing that they do is they hit their vape. That takes them back to normal. The thing is if they had never started doing this stuff in the first place, they'd feel normal without having to do any of that stuff in the first place. This is why hedonism is so bad, and all these drugs is so bad. As you can see, this is sort of see how unstable this person is. Whereas when you're meditating, making a book, reading a book, writing a chapter, you're a lot more stable, you have a lot more poise, you're a lot more able to manage your emotions and basically direct yourself on the course of the things that you're wanting to get out of this very life that we have been gifted to live. Again, this is why mindfulness, journaling, meditation, and the craft process in my program, which is the 5 audits, in case you haven't looked at them yet. We audit your cycles, we audit your relationships, we audit your environment, and then we curate your environment to make sure that you're actually using it to support the person you want to be rather than keeping you from the person you want to be. Your feed, news process, are you watching the news, are you scrolling social media, and then time, where your time is going. This is why all this stuff is so important, because without it, you're a lot more inclined to do these things. Whereas if you can design your environment from the outside, the next day you'll be able to naturally become into that person you're wanting to be over enough time. If we were to attribute this to your fitness goals, you'd set a goal to be 50% body fat by the end of the year. With a goal that you are specific with, and with that you reflect upon often so it transmutes into your subconscious mind, you will receive dopamine every time you eat something healthy, every time you go to the gym, etc. However, it's not nearly as much as drugs, alcohol, pornography, or any other concentrated sources of dopamine. Again, you also need to associate this ideal version of yourself with pleasure, and you need to associate where you don't want to be in life with pain. My best guess is you don't want to be somebody who's addicted to drugs and is wasting their money on alcohol all the time and is only working 9 to 5 and drinking. And 9 to 5 you need to associate that with pain. And you need to associate being in shape with pleasure. That comes with visualizing yourself as somebody who is already in shape, identifying as yourself as somebody who is already in shape, and believing that you are already in shape, but merely you are just waiting on its delivery through the habits that you're doing every single day. Remember that dopamine releases more in anticipation of doing something that releases dopamine. 9 times out of 10, after you've run out of willpower and you're stressed out, these vices will release enough dopamine to push you over the edge and indulge in them, thus raising your dopamine baseline even more and repeating the cycle. This is why later when we craft your process, you will be able to get over your vices easier. We arrange your environment for success instead of having you to try to have a success in an unsuccessful environment. The people who are disciplined built their environments around them to be disciplined. They set themselves up to be disciplined. They're not willing themselves away from junk food. They're not willing themselves away from pornography and social media. They're placing blockages between their unideal circumstances and they're adding fluidity between them and their ideal circumstances. This is something you need to conceptualize. Your dopamine, when at a normal level, makes it easier to build new habits on autopilot because you're not constantly fighting against yourself to force yourself to go to the gym, to force yourself to not do vices and everything else. You just flow and achieve your goals with the systems that we put in place. Dopamine and reward. You got a big win, crash. This is a common theory of addiction. Something that's important to note is that with every high, there will be a low. As you indulge in these high dopamine producing activities, the more you want these substances, the more dopamine is released in anticipation of doing the substance. However, the bad side of this is that the substance that produces a ton of dopamine motivates you to do it will become increasingly less and less enjoyable or requiring a higher dosage to feel the same effects. The crash becomes stronger. You want the substance more, right? As I mentioned earlier, these people they'll go up and then they'll crash and they'll be like, oh, I better scroll Reddit because I feel shitty. Oh, I better go to the... That's what's going on with this. The substance that produces a ton of dopamine to motivate you to do it will become increasingly less and less enjoyable. The crash will become stronger. You will want the substance more, and it feels less enjoyable every time you do it. The negative side effects and feelings simultaneously get stronger as the enjoyment of the vice goes down, perpetuating addiction. After binging high dopamine content, TikTok, YouTube Shorts, porn, you may feel restless, anxious, or like your skin is crawling. This is your brain withdrawing from the overstimulation, a sense that nothing feels good enough. Low stimulation tasks like reading, work, or even relaxing feel boring, pointless, or overwhelming. These feelings are part of a dopamine crash, the brain's way of trying to rebalance after being flooded with artificial pleasure. Your dopamine levels drop rapidly after the binge. The only thing that seems to restore balance is doing the behavior again, as mentioned earlier. Oh, I feel really crappy, I better browse Reddit. Oh, I feel really crappy, I better watch Netflix. Stuff like that. This leads to a diminishing return cycle. The activity becomes less pleasurable even though your cravings for it increase. The more you need more intense stimulation or longer sessions to feel the same relief or escape. This is how compulsive use and dependency form. It becomes about relieving discomfort instead of chasing joy. Your baseline dopamine level is rising, making normal life feel dull. Activities like working out, eating clean, or building something meaningful don't spike dopamine as intensely or instantly, so your brain doesn't even prioritize them. Even when you want to be productive, your brain is wired to avoid low dopamine effort and to chase quick hits. Eventually, your dopamine reward system becomes fatigued. Your brain's reward receptors become desensitized, meaning that even these high stimulation activities stop feeling good. Scrolling TikTok, all of these high dopamine vices will not satisfy you. They start to feel like shit. Meanwhile, for meaningful goals, focus and willpower plummet, not because you're lazy. The end result is that you feel trapped in a loop. You're chasing stimulation, crashing, and then needing more just to function and not feel anxious, stressed out, and panicking. Long-term goals like fitness or career growth feel impossible because your brain's reward system is no longer working in your favor. Pleasure for the sake of pleasure, otherwise known as hedonism, scrolling, watching porn, video games, junk food, smoking weed, alcohol, nicotine, it's fleeting. It is for the sake of feeling good. The ironic thing is that the more you chase pleasure, the less you are able to feel pleasure because your dopamine baseline continuously rises and your dopamine receptors can only produce so much. Then you're left worse than you started, able to do nothing other than that vice and to do whatever is required to feed yourself. Dopamine is the reason why many work just to afford rent and food, just in time to make it home and go back to doing those things repeatedly forever because the games you play is more entertaining, the junk food you eat after work, and the TV you watch or the porn you watch is more entertaining and easier to get than the things that like an ultimately fulfilling life, which gives you less dopamine in the process of working towards it. The most important thing to realize is that things are not difficult. You just don't have your dopamine under control to be able to be motivated to do those things. Disciplined people are not disciplined because they just have more discipline than you. They set themselves up to be disciplined. Once you break away from your vices, which produce high levels of dopamine through methods in the craft process, it becomes easier and even entertaining when it comes to completing your goals. Again, immediate versus delayed gratification. You probably have a decent idea of delayed gratification versus instant gratification, but I want to touch on it just to get it into your head. Instant gratification leads to nowhere. You are getting older, close to death, but you continue to do it because it feels so good. And it's hard to do anything but the instant gratification because your dopamine threshold is so high. It takes more dopamine for you to do boring things, even though they're not boring. They just feel boring because your dopamine is used to porn, video games, all this other shit. Long-term gratification, while more difficult to obtain the same level of motivation / dopamine that you get towards doing instant gratification things, you will receive the long-term benefits of a better body, more money, a more stable life. And I'm not talking about money. I mean emotions not fluctuating 24/7 due to constant dopamine spikes and crashes leading to what many label as anxiety, depression, or ADHD. I was diagnosed with all of those, and I got over it when I stopped my vices, specifically porn mostly. And I was just fed pills like that would be the solution, even though my lifestyle was really what needed to be changed. This is the problem in America. Anyways, but long-term gratification is hard. The key to getting your dopamine under control is so these things feel just as fun as playing video games. These things feel just as fun as your vices, except without the downsides. Similarly to how chasing hedonism, pleasure for the sake of pleasure, which ultimately results in more pain, the opposite is also true. The more pain you go through, whether it be a cold shower, lifting weights, etc., the more pleasure you will eventually experience because you'll look yourself in the mirror and you have solid evidence that you didn't let yourself down for however many years you let yourself down for, or you could have let yourself down for. Dopamine, the backwards logic of growth. Most people chase pleasure first. Dopamine hits from scrolling junk food porn, but chasing pleasure first leads to pain later. That's addiction, burnout, and low motivation. What most people don't realize is that dopamine works better when you flip the sequence. Pain first, pleasure after equals long-term dopamine gain. Pleasure first, pain after equals long-term dopamine drain. What? When you do something instantly pleasurable, like social media, your body sees it as an abnormal spike. It restores homeostasis. You feel less pleasure from the same thing, and your body tries to fight off unnatural highs. When you do something uncomfortable, your body also tries to return you to this balance. But instead of crashing, your dopamine spikes slowly and sustainably afterwards. You feel better after the pain. Your dopamine levels don't drop off a cliff. This is resilience building. Again, 250% after a cold shower, elevated for hours after a crash. Compare that to porn, crashes after empty. That's post-nut clarity. Yeah. You can rewire your brain to crave discipline the same way it craves dopamine now, the same way it craves wanting to do social media or wanting to scroll social media, wanting to watch porn, eat junk food, etc. But the route isn't more stimulation. It's controlled discomfort. As you stay away from high dopamine producing activities, the pain will lessen and paradoxically more pleasure will come. At the end, a natural high will come which doesn't crash, and like Nietzsche says, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. You will literally be more stronger, more resilient, and your life will ultimately be more fulfilling in the end because you get off work. You can focus on the things that really matter rather than fleeting feelings of pleasure. Okay, dopamine is important to get under control. What should I do? Overcome it with sheer willpower. Don't be a pussy. Again, the craft process, which is what you guys will run through, this is what we've designed to help you overcome your vices as easily as possible. Through working on your environment to make it easier to do hard things and harder to do easier things, the craft process is a series of audits which you will report to me that will allow you and I to be more aware of the things in your environment which are ultimately holding your dopamine hostage and keeping you from making progress. Your cycles, your relationships, ambiance, your feed, and your time. I provide videos, templates, and worksheets to help you do it as easily as possible with my personal guidance if need be. They will allow you to be able to find the things that keep you from doing hard shit and move things around to make you do easy shit. And with me reflecting on your worksheet submissions, we'll be able to find out, alongside the VICE questionnaire and the mindset questionnaire, exactly what is mentally holding you back from a better mindset, a better body, and a better life. Okay, how do you optimize dopamine levels to increase performance? All of these things have the ability to be addictive. As mentioned earlier, anything that raises dopamine levels has the potential to be addictive. Essentially, with dopamine being under control, though, you can become addicted to achieving your goals. Sorry, my mouse is bugging. Essentially, the autopilot system, which spirals people into negative addictions, can make you addicted to your positive addictions once you get it under control. This is huge. Cold showers, again, boost your dopamine levels by 250% up to after 2 hours after you take one. I take one whenever I feel tired, whenever I feel discouraged, whenever I feel like my dopamine's out of whack. I just climb in one. Sometimes I'll take 3 a day. This will allow you to do the work you've been putting up. It allows you to feel better, and it was even used to be a remedy of depression until taking a pill was easier, which easier, as we've learned, is rarely better. This is single-handedly the largest impact thing you can start doing to get addicted to achieving your goals, getting rid of depression and anxiety, and being healthier. First, don't be all macho about it. Turn off all the hot water right at the end to start, and then move up to cold showers. These are all the pros. Cons, it's cold. That's like the only one. Controlling your diet. Okay. Foods that boost dopamine in extreme amount will lead you to disregarding your goals. Basically, anything in a packaging that is anything Kellogg's, anything with some fancy label on it, right? Chips, cheese puffs, crackers, burgers, fries, fried chicken, beverages with sugar, energy drinks, basically anything in the packaging or the middle aisles or fast food in general. They are a business and you are an addicted consumer. They don't care about you being healthy. They don't get paid to have you be healthy. They get paid by making the cheapest amalgamation of ingredients to follow the trends to sell more. Nature Valley is not healthy, bro. These are designed to be addictive because it's profitable for you to be addictive. They exploit your reward pathways, override your natural feelings of being full, and they create bad habit loops where short-term pleasure outweighs your long-term goals. Want to eat junk food? You're helping these people profit off of your eventual external pain. I know it pisses me off. Anyways, diets high in artificial sugars will spike your insulin, spike your dopamine, and will lead to crashes of both, perpetuating the cycle of eating too much. This will kill your ability to focus, whereas complex carbs, lean proteins, healthy fats will provide a steady stream of energy for you. All micronutrients, B vitamins, omega-3s, all this other stuff, healthy. A deficiency of any of these will make you foggy-headed, impair your memory, and you won't be able to think clearly. Hopefully your brain isn't running off of hot Cheetos and you can actually understand the severity of actually taking your diet seriously, because your brain is pretty fucking important. Section 3, dopamine and habit formation. How dopamine can be harnessed to form and sustain healthy habits. Cue is a trigger which signals your brain that it's time to engage in behavior. It could be a time of day, a specific area in your house, or people that you're around, day of the week, seeing an item that makes you want to do something. Dopamine is released when a cue is prompted to motivate you to do it. So let's say you're wanting to beat your bad habit of eating junk food and you have junk food in the fridge. You're going to get dopamine when you see it, right? Out of sight, out of mind. So what you should do if you want to overcome it is just not buy it in the first place. The key to being disciplined is getting rid of the cues, i.e. seeing someone with a nicotine addiction and having someone with a vape. This is why the craft process is essential. We find your cues to bad habits. Craving only occurs when a cue is prompted and a response is blocked. Craving does not occur when the cue does not occur. Basically, if you see someone with a weed pen and you are addicted to weed and you don't smoke it, your body's going to be like, wait a minute, this isn't right. And it's going to elicit the restoring homeostatic balance process of you actually doing the drug, except you didn't do the drug yet. That's when craving is elicited. It makes you feel like shit. It craves you to do it, or it cues you to do it, gives you dopamine to make you be motivated to do it. And then when you don't do it, it makes you crave it. When you don't see these things at all, a craving is never elicited. So get rid of it. You won't do it. The behavior you perform is in response to the cue. Whether it's grabbing food, checking your phone, the more it's engaged in, the more it becomes your default response to the cue. That's your routine. It can also be a specific time of day. So even if you don't have junk food at your house, you might still have craving, but sometimes you gotta get rid of it. Put as much of a barrier between you and the things you don't want to do, and as easy of a barrier between you and the things you do want to do. Routine, the behavior you perform in response to the cue, whether it's grabbing junk food, checking your phone, I already said that. Reward, this is the benefit you get from that routine. The cue, routine, and reward. Sense of pleasure, relief, it tells you that what you did was worth it. Dopamine reinforces the habit cycle, telling you that it was worth it, although the feeling is fleeting. As noted earlier, hedonism, pleasure for the sake of pleasure, results in not being able to feel pleasure at all. Wah, wah. This results in a feedback loop that perpetuates. The more you engage in it, the stronger your dopamine release, even if the reward itself doesn't feel enjoyable. I.e., you want it more than you like it, despite whether it has negative effects or not. So, not having dopamine under control will overstimulate you. It will deteriorate your mental and physical health. It will reduce your self-control. And it'll eventually lead you to a habit of drifting through life without any direction or purpose, because your purpose becomes hedonism, which is, as mentioned, pleasure for its own sake. Pleasure for its own sake will result in the inability to feel pleasure. Your dopamine baseline can only go so high until you start running out of money, and then all you're doing is doing your drug to feel normal and then working a job. Crappy existence, man. Crappy existence. So, anyways, hopefully that was valuable. Are you screwed? Probably not. I doubt it. Here's what you need to do to get dopamine under control. Be brutally honest with me and with yourself, okay? These are the 12 steps to getting over an alcohol addiction as listed on Alcoholics Anonymous. Admit that you are powerless over the vice. Believe that a power greater than yourself can restore that power. Make a decision to turn your will and life over to the care of God. Make a fearless moral inventory of yourself. Raw, honest self-assessment. No sugarcoating. What's working, what's not, and what's working. This is part of what makes the craft process so valuable. It is a fearless moral inventory of keeping your shit straight and facing the facts. Admit to God, ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. Sharing your truth, even when it hurts, is essential to breaking the cycle. Note that I will not judge you, and that I genuinely want to help you transform your life. Be entirely ready to have God remove these defects of character. Humbly ask God to remove our shortcomings. Make a list of people harmed and be willing to make amends with them all unless it causes greater harm. Make direct amends to people so that whenever possible, make direct amends to such people whenever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. Continue to take personal inventory, and when wrong, promptly admit it. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understand Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. Having a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, carrying the message to others who are struggling, and practicing these principles in all affairs. These are the 12 steps to a 12. So you could say God's not real. I don't really care what you think, but this is what helps people get over alcohol addiction, which is one of the strongest and most dangerous addictions that happens. So, something to be said about it. That's all I'm going to say. Humbleness is at the heart of all of this. Admitting to yourself, others, and me, your coach, of the things you've been struggling with. I am not a therapist, but praying to a God I hardly believed in, when reflecting on, back upon it, was something that helped me overcome my porn addiction. This was something that I have struggled with since I was 8, and I've ruined relationships with girls due to it without me even realizing it. I think that these proven 12 steps have something to be said about them, and I think they're worth noting regardless of what your opinion or conception of God is. Again, part of it is humbling yourself and being like, you know what, I might as well believe in something that I don't really believe in. Because a lot of pride is what keeps you stuck, and pride is what makes you think that, oh, I don't have a problem. I can just smoke every week, and you have a problem, G. You have a problem if you're not improving every single day. You have something wrong with you if you're not living your fucking life to your greatest potential, brother, because this is your one life. And when I was 17 years old and I took way too much acid and weed, I thought I was going to die. Maybe I was. Guess what? All I wanted was a second chance. And so when I got a second chance, I was going to make it worthwhile. Some people don't get scared of shit like that, okay? But you will be able to realize how much more of your life is available once you break your vices. So keep a log of your bad habits, practice mindfulness, incremental changes, gradually reduce the intensity of addictive behavior while increasing the frequency of healthier routines, half a scoop of pre-workout instead of a full scoop, stuff like that. Enhance natural rewards, right? Regular physical activity not only boosts dopamine naturally, but also reinforces a positive, non-addictive routine. Find a workout you enjoy. Boxing, running, or weight training can all do the trick. Accountability and support. Having someone to check in with can keep you on track. This is where my coaching comes in. I will see you at every corner of the way, and I will hold you to your daily habits in your craft process. And then note, the withdrawal process typically takes about 2 weeks. This means that it will get worse before it gets better. But realize that it's just clearing it out of your system and that this pain is a very good thing. Once you begin to realize that pain is what results in pleasure, you're already on the right track. So, key points. Understand the loop. Every habit starts with a cue, follows with a routine, ends with a reward. Dopamine is at the heart of the cycle, making even harmful behaviors feel necessary. Rewire your brain. Replace the damaging routine with healthier alternatives. Incremental changes and mindful awareness and structured support are your best bets for breaking free from addictive cycles. Invest in yourself and your long-term health. High sustainable dopamine levels come from a balanced lifestyle, regular exercise, quality sleep, nutrient-rich food, and stress management. This isn't about quick fixes. It's about continuous forward-thinking practice. Invest in a gym membership. Invest in a coach. Invest in better food. It is 100% worth it. And you probably don't even realize how much it's worth it. I didn't when I was addicted to junk food because you just can't think straight. It clouds your mind. The daily habits you practice in this program are not for no reason. I didn't design this course to cram you with generic information you can find anywhere. I built it to take anyone from wherever they are mentally, physically, and spiritually and elevate them in just 3 months using the things that have taken me countless hours, years, and days, I guess you could say, to learn. When I say elevate, this is what it means. The craft process, we audit every aspect of your environment to identify what's keeping you from building good habits and chaining you to your vices. You get worksheets and my personal guidance to break those barriers down. Daily online journals and habit trackers. You mark off your habits from anywhere, or I will review your progress daily. If you're not crushing your assigned habits, I'm on your ass every single day until you deliver. The 5 pillars of change, from ignition to transcendence. These pillars hold you accountable for completing daily habits that are backed by psychological studies. Your daily journal entries reflect your growth and progress. Custom curated workout routine and nutritional accountability. A routine aligned with your goals wherever they are. We track your macros daily using a scale, just like I do, to ensure you hit your targets, with maxing days to push your strength further, and assigned daily workouts depending on whatever gym equipment you have available to ensure that you still get it in. Anyways, watch through the remaining content to learn everything you need about building muscle, losing fat, and eating to achieve both your long-term and short-term goals, and all the other psychological concepts we will review throughout this program. I've spent countless hours reading over 35 books, listening to personal development podcasts, watching in-depth YouTube videos like this. I'm a psych major. I'm 7/8 to my NASM certification, and I've worked on myself for over 4 years to filter the signal from all the noise in the online personal development space. Filter it into this program. My mission is simple: to help you and 9,999 others truly believe in yourselves by December 21st, 2025. Through subconscious practices, daily accountability, and psychology-backed methods for change, we are going to unlock your full potential. If you're ready to elevate every aspect of your life, this program isn't just a theory, and I'm excited that you give me the honor to help you through these next 3 months. All right. Thank you for watching. I hope you got some from that video. And go through the craft modules, analyze your cycles, and eventually we will get on a call and we will run through every single one of your audits, and we will meticulously form your ideal environment to perpetuate your success. So if you're interested, just keep going on, keep on keeping on, and schedule that call once you get through all these modules. Peace.